Welcome back to Responding to Human Trafficking for Pregnancy Resource Centers. This is Module 4, and I want to thank you for looking at the vocabulary of trafficking. After completing this module, you will be able to identify common terms related to trafficking in persons, navigate conversations to expose vulnerabilities or victimization, and differentiate pimping language from gang control language. The language of trafficking is just like any jargon or dialect. There are variations particular to a group or geographic location. Some of the terms shared here may or may not be used in your area. We'll go through common terms and their meanings, so you can listen for clues that might otherwise be overlooked in conversations with your clients. Understanding the vocabulary of labor or sex trafficking can help you help your clients recognize their abuse. Language does evolve, and clarity calls for understanding words within their context. In the U.S., sex trafficking vocabulary differs a little between pimp control, gang control, and familial trafficking. There are a few terms unique to labor trafficking, but most are indistinguishable from regular employment expressions. Asking about autonomy and safety are more likely to reveal labor trafficking situations. A trusted interpreter is vital. The specific type of trafficking situation will determine the relevance of the vocabulary as a possible indicator. Pimps, gangs, and familial sex trafficking all occur here in the U.S., as does labor trafficking. The women you see in your center arrive from diverse cultural, socioeconomic, educational, and experiential backgrounds. We've looked at the objective or situational signs of trauma and indicators of possible trafficking. We know women trafficked for sex are likely to seek medical care while being trafficked. As we expose the language of sex trafficking and the roles involved, it is vital that you see all of these people through the lens of scriptural love and not attribute their designations to them. Your kindness and understanding bring freedom. People involved in commercial sexual exploitation are called a lot of degrading names, but the commonality of certain terms related to prostitution nationwide make this an important exercise. Pimps may be men or women. They look like anyone. The mechanisms of control over victims distinguishes them. You might not see a pimp. You might see a handler monitoring a victim. A pimp scout may be out looking for vulnerable youth. A Romeo or finesse pimp takes pride in using psychological manipulation to build loyalty and compliance among those being prostituted. They establish strong bonds by showering victims with gifts and affection and fulfilling her needs and desires at first. Guerrilla pimps control their victims entirely or nearly entirely by physical violence. They rape their prey, they torture their victims with beatings, and may instruct others to attack them also. Is she a prostitute or a trafficking victim? There is a thin and fragile veil between prostitution and sex trafficking. She may believe she's in control and that her choice is her own. However, it might be that one time she cannot dissociate, or that one violent episode, or yet another demeaning comment, a bad diagnosis, or a conversation with someone who has the peace and joy that she longs for, that pierces the veil, and she may suddenly realize that she is being manipulated. If she has a pimp, they will call her their bitch, wifey, or wife-in-law. If she is one of a number of prostituted women from the same living situation, they may refer to one another as sister wife. If she is without a pimp, she may be called renegade, outlaw, or out of pocket, which may also mean out from under control. To peel a trick means she stole from a buyer. If she is arrested, she caught a case. Of course, most of us have heard the more damning terms like hoe, whore, and slut. A lot lizard is a derogatory term for someone prostituted at truck stops. Though it's unlikely you'll hear this, it is possible. The bottom, or bottom bitch, generally denotes the position of being second in command to the pimp. She has the most privileges as well as the most responsibility. She is the closest to the pimp, and thus it is often a sought-after title. A bottom may handle the business end and still prostitute. She may recruit and train young bitches. She'll collect all the money from the other bitches, facilitate transactions, and make arrangements for everything from food and housing to travel and medical care. A bottom may carry out the punishments, or she may be the one receiving all the violence if things go bad. She is as much a victim in most cases. The group being prostituted is called the family or folks. This can hide the sinister role of the pimp, who forces them to call him daddy. You might hear her talk about her family, and it might be an actual family, but the family of a pimp called daddy is exploited for commercial sex. Subtle differences can be telling. Those whose folks live together in groups who are sexually exploited are usually not biologically related. They are often a number of youth, maybe as young as 12 or 13 years old, along with young adults. A stable could reference a house or an apartment, but almost always it's not a place at all, but a group of prostituted people under the control of one pimp. He owns them and treats them like livestock, sometimes moving them from place to place. Buyers may pay money or trade something of value for sex acts. They have historically been called johns, dates, or tricks. They don't know or don't care whether a woman is there voluntarily or not, or if she's a minor. A commercial sex act is also called a trick. Johns, dates, and tricks are the drivers of the sex trade. They are regular people with regular jobs. Some of my buyers were professionals, like lawyers, doctors, teachers, and business owners, and some were in government roles, like the city council. A facilitator could be a cabbie, hotel or motel staff, a corner store clerk, anyone who knows about the commercial sexual exploitation and provides cover for it to happen. They may or may not get paid. Fear of the trafficker compels some people to cover up the illegal activity. Traffickers have rules. For example, a victim is not allowed to look around because traditionally, if she makes eye contact with another pimp, she's choosing up who will control her. She could accidentally make eye contact and thus the term reckless eyeballing. If her current pimp doesn't let her go, he has to pay, so he'll make her pay through violence or extending hours of prostitution. This is important for you to know because she may be so conditioned not to look at faces that she won't make eye contact in any situation. There are some cultural mores that prohibit women from making eye contact. So remember, this is a red flag, not a sure thing. In terms of logistics and control, sometimes either the pimp or the bottom will establish a quota. This is the amount of money a prostituted person must bring in. If she doesn't make quota, she could be forced to prostitute until she has it, even if she's been out all night and all day. She may get a tattoo with the pimp's name or insignia. This branding signals control. When a woman is branded this way, it further degrades her sense of humanity, and her autonomy may be obliterated. Branding can also be done by scarring or burning, just as it is with livestock. When she is fully under the control of a pimp, she may be on automatic. Victims will do everything expected without oversight, even if the pimp is in jail or traveling. A trap house may be a means of control, both by controlling movement or location, and by making drugs available only at that one place to keep them coming back. Traffickers may withhold drugs after creating a state of physical dependency to make her dope sick, usually heroin, but it could be other opioids, strong painkillers that are highly addictive. A trap house has multiple victims. They are addicted and controlled by alternating drugs like ecstasy or E, sometimes called Molly, to keep them up, and opioids to settle down. It is truly a vicious cycle that has terrible physical effects. It is tremendously important that we remain sensitive to the fact that the stigma associated with prostitution keeps this criminal activity hidden. We must never assume anything. Always follow the protocols in place for your center and don't ask her who her pimp or trafficker is. You might hear your clients referred to as bitches, but a gang might use slang specific to their community. She might call her abuser her boyfriend. It's important to be non-reactive and maintain composure when the vocabulary points to trafficking. It's best to mirror her language where appropriate and develop a relationship of trust and mutual respect. Remember, you're not to rescue, but to provide an open door of real compassionate care. Let's look at some language that's common among gangs. Gangs are unique in that they each have a culture of their own. If there are gangs and/or gang influences around your center, I suggest you invest in Shared Hope International's The Gang Trap curriculum for more depth in your learning. Gangs blood in and blood out. Initiates blood in by spilling blood, either their own or someone else's. To blood out means the only way to leave the gang is death. Gangs generally target vulnerable youth and entice them by glamorizing the benefits of the gang family structure. During initiation or entrance to the gang, youth might be jumped in, which means they're jumped and beaten up by other gang members. They may be sexed in, meaning gang raped, or they might be blessed in by a family member loyal to the gang. They could also be initiated by being sent on a mission. A mission is usually a violent criminal act, often a drive-by shooting or a contract hit, an ordered murder. Someone has to spill blood to become part of the gang, so it's a huge responsibility and carries its own trauma bond. They will now be bangin', or they might say gangbangin', as part of the gang. Members may be called gangsta, G, banger, banga, or a nickname like Animal or Hawk. A female gang member is a queen. Others are homies or homeboys. The gang might be national, transnational, or local, and is made up of people called a set, clique, hood, or crew. Each is unique and each has colors, or a brand, which differentiate them from a neighboring gang or subset. A snitch might provide information to law enforcement or others, or even within the gang to cause division. A soldier is a member who commits crimes when ordered by the gang's leadership. A gang's criminal activity varies, but some terms you might hear have been mainstreamed through the culture. Down means to be cool with something. To be down with the set means to be loyal to the gang. Hittin' up means to use graffiti to mark territory or promote the gang. To ink or get inked is to get a tattoo. Flashing is using a hand signal, unique to the gang, for identification or intimidation. To get down is to get in a fight. A green light is permission to kill someone. To bust a cap is to shoot someone, especially a rival gang member. To disrespect someone is to diss them. To be disrespected is to be dissed out. A bit about navigating conversations. In Module 3, we discussed the kinds of questions to ask during your intake, and we explored some specific examples. Knowing the terms related to gangs and sex trafficking may help you tailor your conversation to meet your clients where they are. If she's using terms that denote either gang activity or pimping, you will be able to direct her to recognize her vulnerability or victimization. Developing rapport is the single most important thing you can do. She's in your center because she is sexually active. Commercial sexual exploitation is a possibility that you'll address by following specific protocols. Labor trafficking is more nuanced. Refer to the questions about autonomy in Module 3 to help you recognize these victims. The red flag issues will likely be related to the ability to communicate. Although labor trafficking can happen to U.S. residents, women may be brought in from other countries, especially as any kind of servant or seasonal worker. Unfortunately, you cannot rely on anyone they brought with them to accurately translate information. Immigration status can be a scary subject, so it is imperative that you have reliable interpreters who can develop a rapport with your clients. You may want to reach out and develop relationships with professional translators and interpreters from your local hospital. Labor trafficking by definition is illegal, but it may also be used for illicit activity. Mules are people who are used to transport drugs, guns, or other contraband. Coyotes, or coyotes, are facilitators from Mexico. They might smuggle people or they might arrange for placement. Snakeheads have the same role, but they are typically from Asia. They are slave traders. Migrant workers here on temporary visas are at risk. Employers are not transferable. Unaware, victims might be exploited by debt bondage or peonage. Unable to work off an elusive amount of debt, they accrue more due to living expenses. Every word matters. The next few modules delve into the mechanics of how trafficking language shapes the lives of the vulnerable clients that you see. This will help provide the basis for enhancing your protocols at your center. Much of what we look at in this course is disturbing. Try to pace your exposure and take good care of yourself. Much of the vocabulary of those involved in the subculture of human trafficking is in and of itself damaging to the innate human dignity of the people we seek to serve. While we may not be able to change the language, there will, hopefully, be opportunities to add to their experience and show them their inestimable value. What's next? After completing the quiz on the next screen, go to the knowledge base in the course room and review the following materials.